First of all, let me apologize for not being with you. I intended to, but I had to face another kind of Europeanization, meaning crisis management of a European project. And believe me, I prefer to discuss Eurovision than this. Europe has many facets. I am in Brussels, and that's a way to maybe to start precising where I am speaking from. In spatial terms, I will discuss Belgium, the country, a bit, but Brussels, capital of the European Union. This is to say that I am not a specialist of Eurovision, and I say that regarding the distinguished scholars that are in the program and probably online or in the room. I have been working on the legitimization on the European Union for 20 years and focusing on the symbolic dimensions of this legitimization, meaning the cultural, normative, religious dimensions of the debate. And I meet Eurovision in several capacities. But I don't pretend to add much to the rich existing scholarship. But what I propose to do is maybe to suggest new angles, a way to go further, and new angles in terms, for example, of comparison with other symbolic devices, comparisons between countries, of course. It's already very rich, the program of this conference, and also comparisons between what is offered, discourses or songs, and receptions of these discourses and songs. This was just a quick introduction to precise where I am and what I am about to say and what also I am not about to say. And I am very interested in Eurovision in this capacity because indeed, as it was well shown in the literature, Eurovision works both as a magnifying glass of European integration, and the European Union is only one form of this European integration, and it also works as a distorting mirror of this Europeanization of politics. When you work on the European Union, of course, you see in the Eurovision the same tension between government by elites and technocrats and popular voting. You see also the same back and forth between advocacy for European integration, backlash against this advocacy, and withdrawal. You see an oscillation between a bold advocacy and more modest forms of advocacy. I work on European narrative, and I emphasize these dynamics also. In fact, these dynamics between politicization and depoliticization, and again, repoliticization, something that is quite visible also in Eurovision and in the debate around Eurovision. Because like the European Union, and it was written by some, like Eurovision, the European Union is a model of this liberal international order, and we should understand this liberal international order first as an order. So there is, of course, a matter of hierarchy, of relations of power, of interest, of course, and never forget the market. And maybe the market dimension is not present enough in our discussions on both the European Union. Well, it's still relatively central, but on Eurovision also. But also international, liberal international order, meaning liberal, political liberalism, of course, democracy, rule of law, fundamental rights, and cultural liberalism. Of course, here bonds of contention emerge quickly: gender rights, LGBT rights, family rights, or traditional values, and so on and so forth. So we meet also the same front lines between cosmopolitan versus national or nationalist visions, between progressive versus traditional values, and also we see the same influence of external shocks, frequently mediated through national prism, but it's also what is both the interest and probably maybe also the drama and the challenge of Eurovision. So this is to say that I rely on this scholarship, and I try to go further, or maybe to explore new angles, And these new angles may be through comparisons. Comparisons between symbolic devices. And here, it's quite exploratory because the same, I meet sports and especially football frequently in my objects, but I'm not a specialist of sports either. But it's just the simple assumption that, of course, we have no European public sphere. Tribute and apologize to Habermas that left us recently. But you have some events emerging, transnational events emerging as media rituals and also as transnational social interactions. All things are different but correlated. And among these events, two prominent examples are the European Football Championship, aka Euro, and the Eurovision Song Contest, aka Eurovision. And I will deal with that in my presentation in two capacities, in separate capacities, football on one side and Eurovision on the other side, but also in aggregate version Euro/Vision, just to highlight what is common and what is different in the perceptions of the two events. As a political scientist, I use maybe slightly different tools. Each discipline has its tools. And my approach is framed, for example, in terms of everyday experiences of Europe that may or may not favor the development of a banal Europeanism in comparison with the banal nationalism theorized by Billig that was referred to also in other contributions. So this idea that Eurovision, both Eurovision and Eurovision, could work as a cultural infrastructure of community making, mirroring what happened in nation-state making, also with comparisons with song contests, for example, at local or national level. Here I refer to McNamara. And I will take this example of Belgium. Why? Not because I am Belgian, I am not. Because probably I am in Belgium, yes, that's probably a practical reason. But also because Belgium is presented as a kind of benchmark of Europe. It's a founding member state of the European Union, but it's also a complicated society and polity, let's say. It's a multi-level system of governance based on negotiation and compromises, like the European Union. It's also multicultural and multilingual polity, like the European Union. And most recently, it has exemplified a shift in the population from unconditional support for Europe to criticism and harsh criticism of European integration. So it's a kind of battleground for the debates that frequently emerge regarding the Eurovision. So Belgium and football, two fieldworks to discuss this Eurovision, and that's the last dimension that characterized my approach, the focus on citizens' perception. Citizens' perception, because frequently the analysis of Eurovision is focused on the offer of meaning the songs, or the reflection of this offer in media coverage, in elite statement. And there is still a literature dealing with societal perceptions, individual perceptions, but it's not necessarily the most developed part of scholarship. And I would like to inscribe myself in this trend and to try modestly at the scale of this presentation to try to go a bit further. How to do that? Through a survey. I am not a quantitative person. I have to precise this from scratch. I am a committed qualitativist, but I use more and more surveys just to precisely study the receptions of European narratives or symbols. It's the worst way to do that at the exception of all others, would say that. It's not perfect, but it still offers a relatively large view of this perception. And here it's an online survey and a representative sample of the Belgian population. So again, it offers some data in the range and limits of certain approach. I insist really on this. It's more about trends than about exact stat. And in any case, I use only descriptive statistics. This being said, and these limits being set, I will share with you quickly in the 6 minutes, these 6 remaining minutes, the main findings of this research. First, indeed, the Eurovision, and it's not exactly a discovery, produce effects and political effects, at least according to the answers of the respondents to this survey. And the point that I would like to emphasize is that, in fact, the Eurovision is said to create more divisions than unity. Respondents were proposed some questions inspired by the literature, of course, and sometimes deliberately exacerbated. Yes, the Eurovision is perceived as a factor of European unity by some, by creating a common moment, so experiencing a transnational cultural encounter. It's also perceived by some, frequently the same, as a show that celebrates European values, so tolerance, minority rights. But, and in fact, above all, it is also perceived as a way to increase divisions in Europe. First, by reviving national oppositions, because it's a competition. Next, by projecting values that may offend some perceptions. And here the formulation, again, deliberately is clearly affirmed, let's say, offend traditional values and decencies. And even more, it may impact the feeling of European unity because it includes non-European countries. So far, Australia is not a member state. You never know regarding the times we live, but it's still true for the moment. So effects more in terms of division, and it's even truer if we compare the perceptions of Eurovision with the perception of the Euro, the football competition. I will not go into the details. I don't have the time and it's not relevant. It's simply to highlight this, that you can find the same positive and negative effects for both events, but the positive effects are perceived as weaker for the Eurovision, and the negative effects on European unity are perceived as stronger for the Eurovision, especially concerning the presence of non-European countries that is likely to blur European borders, and by showing a spectacle that offends traditional values and decency. So the same issues may exist in football competition or in other sports, we know, but not at the same scale, according to our respondent. Now, refocusing on Eurovision, one interesting fact when we go beyond the first wave of results is that the attitude towards Eurovision, if we compare the answer, first choice, second choice, and the different answers in their global logic, there is a logic behind these answers. So there is an attitude at individual level. It's possible to discern an attitude with a logic. It does not mean that the answers are exclusive. An individual can consider that Eurovision reinforce European unity on some points, but may undermine it on other points. This is not, of course, impossible, but there is a pattern which confirms Eurovision as a political object that creates coherent attitudes toward. It's also true if you compare again the Eurovision with the Euro, the football competition, there is a significant level of concordance between answers.
Sorry to interrupt, you have less than 1 minute. So
that's okay. Okay, I will finish. Yeah. So again, we are in presence of two political objects, so it's worth studying. And it's even more political and even more worth studying. If we relate that to attitudes towards European integration, we see the correlation also in terms of trust in the European Union and in terms of national or European identification. So again, a confirmation of the coherence of attitudes towards these objects. So main findings and especially conclusions. The main findings, it's just here a summary. I will not come back to this, and I will finish with the conclusions. Yes, Eurovision is political. Bon, it was sure from scratch, and it's the topic of the conference. But it's really a way to confirm that it's worth studying as a kind of proxy of European integration, and especially a kind of showcase of the ambivalence and the contradictory logics, but also complementary logics that works behind European integration. And it's an incitation to go on working on this. I guess that nobody in the room needs to be convinced, but politicization is not likely to decrease in European politics, and more likely to rise like a phoenix. I had to pay tribute to Conchita Wurst, my favorite winner of the Eurovision. Probably we may have other opportunities to discuss that in the years to come. And I stop here. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, François.